What's up everybody, welcome back to the Crypto Coffee channel. I'm Matt, and in this video we're going to talk about HEX and PulseChain priorities. And I know I've been giving a lot of information lately, and it can be kind of like drinking from a fire hose sometimes. And there's all kinds of info about how to handle the upcoming opportunities in the PulseChain Airdrop and in HEX. And you see people talking about all this opportunity on the table and all this potential money that can be made, but it can be confusing, right? So I realized that I've been talking a lot about different strategies and different things to do, but I wanted to give you kind of a mental framework about how I would go about prioritizing all these different aspects of HEX and PulseChain if I had to start over again, you know, from day one, square one. If I was totally brand new, I would want to make sure that these three things are in place and in that order too. So stick around because we're going to talk about the three priorities, basically steps 1, 2, and 3 of how I would try to position myself in this upcoming opportunity. Now again, I'm not a financial advisor, none of this is financial advice, and obviously you should always be thinking for yourself, okay? When it comes to investing, there's no one size fits all, there's one size fits one, and so your personal situation is going to be different than mine and different than everybody else's. You're very unique in terms of what you have available and what you're ready to dive into. So really, guys, take personal responsibility. That's what crypto is all about. It's about self-sovereignty and taking responsibility for your own actions. And I'm just here to convey, again, what I would do and how I would think about prioritizing some of these various strategies that you hear talked about all the time. So let's make this a short video and get right into it. First and foremost, before you do anything else, I would want to make sure that I'd set up my HEX Staking Ladder. Now, if you don't know what a HEX Staking Ladder is, go see my previous videos. There's a ton of free content about there from me and other YouTubers, or there's really detailed explanations in my course as well, but the staking ladder in general is a simple strategy. Just choose a time frequency and dollar amount and total length of time that works for you. And you can go to websites like stakehex.today, which I also talk about in another video, and you can go to sites like this to help plan your staking ladder and help give you more peace of mind that you're going in the right direction for whatever financial goals you want to do. But I'd want to make sure that's set up first and foremost before anything else. Now, if you don't have one set up already, well, you should, but I do understand that some people might be working with dollar amounts that are low enough to where gas fees really just make it infeasible to set up your whole ladder. For example, if I've only got $1,000 and I want to make 10 stakes right now, due to the crappy conditions on the Ethereum blockchain, every stake is going to cost me, you know, $50 to set up. Well, if I set up 10 stakes and I've only got $1,000, then I'm spending $500 in gas just on gas fees alone, and I'm left with only staking $500. Now, you want to set up your staking ladder sooner rather than later because the share price in HEX is going up every single day, and you're always going to lock in a better interest rate essentially by being early and staking earlier rather than later. So I'm trying to stress the importance of this, but there are trade-offs due to gas fees, right? So unfortunately, if you're not working with dollar amounts over, you know, maybe $1,000 or a couple $1,000s, this might not make sense for you to do because gas fees might be eating you alive, literally. So if that doesn't make sense for your situation, I would then try to wait till PulseChain is up and running and then set up my entire staking ladder for pennies on the dollar, right? Because PulseChain is solving the problem of Ethereum, which is crazy high gas fees, pricing out new people, and it's going to enable adoption of HEX and every Ethereum project on a much broader scale because the fees are going to be so much lower. It's going to take load off of Ethereum, as we know. If you're really going to get chewed up and spit out by gas by setting up your ladder right now, then I would just wait till PulseChain launches and then set that up first thing that I do on PulseChain, right? So that's the staking ladder. Next, I would try to secure my PLS bag, right? I would try to get my PLS tokens. Now, I entered the sacrifice phase on days 1 through 5, and I think day 17 as well. And the sacrifice phase is officially over, so I really wouldn't recommend sacrificing any money for PLS points that will be converted into PLS tokens. And I wouldn't recommend this because you're getting like over 100x worse of a rate if you try to do that today rather than all the people that got in on days 1 through 17 in the formal sacrifice phase. So if you haven't secured your position in the sacrifice phase, I'd be just waiting until the actual launch of PLS and just be patient and don't jump the gun. And I'd be trying to buy PLS when PulseChain actually exists and when it launches. Again, beware of scammers and fake versions of PLS. But I would do this by dollar cost averaging, right? This is a concept that's pretty familiar in traditional finance. All it means is splitting up your payments into even dollar amounts in even intervals or frequencies over the span of a certain time frame. For example, maybe every paycheck you want to put in $200 into PLS over the course of 3 months. So if you get paid every 2 weeks, then you would put in $200 every 2 weeks, 6 times until that 3-month limit is met. And so you could dollar cost average and enter into PLS this way. You could also ape in on day one and just buy into the frenzy on day one. This might get you a little bit worse rate because, as I talked about in my previous video, a lot of times there is overexuberance when a project launches on day one. So I personally predict a little bit of a dip or a little bit of a sell-off in the month or two after PulseChain launch, but who knows, that might not even happen. So you might want to just dollar cost average, or you might just want to buy entirely on day one, because guys, if you zoom out on the grand scheme of things, the people that bought on day one versus the people that might have gotten to buy the dip, if there is a dip on day 30, for example, well, in the grand scheme of things, at year one, year two, and year three, those are going to look like tiny little blips on the radar in retrospect, right? So really think bigger picture here, and don't beat yourself up if, let's say, there is no dip, or if you buy in at a little bit of a higher price and maybe it dips a little bit lower. You know, again, dollar cost averaging is really useful for that. And like I mentioned, if I did see any dips over, let's say 40 or 50%, I'd be really interested in buying these dips, because I know that in long-term projects that are designed to last and accrue value and network effects, these massive dips are also huge, amazing buying opportunities, like they've been in HEX and like they've been in Bitcoin and Ethereum and many other coins too. So dips are opportunities. We probably will get a dip, in my opinion, but we may not. Dollar cost averaging can save you from this, and you can use a combination of all of this information to plan your own strategy accordingly. But after you do get your bag of PLS, I'd make sure I'm delegating it to a validator ASAP. Now, what does this mean? This is basically the equivalent of staking your PLS to earn more PLS as interest. It's called delegating to a validator. I'm sure it's going to be very easy when PulseChain launches. You'll probably have a website to go to just to delegate to whoever you want to. And I imagine you'll be earning a very low interest rate on your PLS. Now, I do believe that the staking rewards for PLS are going to be way, way lower than HEX. I mean, HEX is really the premier staking coin, and PLS is basically the network token, but because of the price and the unit bias and other factors at play, I don't predict that people are going to be earning a lot from PLS staking rewards. But that said, if you plan on holding PLS like I do on a multi-year time frame and not selling for years and years, if not ever, right? If you have that long-term mindset, then you might as well just be having your Pulse delegated, because you might as well be making a little bit of those transaction fees every time. And that's what's happening. When you're staking your PLS, you're just earning a little bit of transaction fees from the network. Even if it's a very, very slow drip and you don't really end up making that much, I'd say my PLS is better off parked being delegated to a validator than it is just sitting there liquid and not earning anything, right? Finally, after I secure my HEX Staking Ladder and my PLS position, then and only then would I be looking into these deeper dive strategies like I've been talking about. So I know I get really excited when I talk about providing liquidity and, you know, some different projects that I'm thinking about. I just want to stress that that's because of the position that I'm in right now. You know, I've got a staking ladder set up. I was in the PLS sacrifice phase. Of course, I'm interested in getting more of these tokens, but there's also alternative strategies like liquidity providing that I would only be worried about after I've gotten points 1 and 2 down, okay? So this is really exciting to me. Liquidity providing, again, on the HEX EHEX pair and the HEX PLS pair, could earn you that secondary token and could help stabilize the prices of HEX, among other things like earning you transaction fees every time. So there's a lot of benefit to liquidity providing, but this might not make sense if you have smaller amounts of money. And basically, if you need that money to secure a higher PLS position, or if you need that money to set up a staking ladder, I would do those two things first, you know, before worrying about liquidity providing. So this might not make sense for everybody. And don't worry, if you need to focus on points 1 and 2, those will probably do you way better in the long run than more complicated things like point 3. And only after all that stuff would I recommend exploring other protocols, right? If you're happy with your HEX position and you're happy with your PLS position and you want to explore some other protocols, I don't usually recommend any of them. Again, Liquid Loans is the only protocol I've ever been personally interested in, but only then would I even bother to research other protocols, right? So it's easy to get distracted with the promises of the next new 100x coin, but really, guys, again, if I personally had to do this all over again, I'd start with the ladder, I'd then go on to getting my PLS, I'd then go on to liquidity providing, and only after that would I skeptically review upcoming projects and maybe determine if I would be willing to be a part of new protocols. So I'm going to be wanting to buy these things, buy PLS on the Pulse swap, which will probably look something like this. I'll be wanting to buy PLS before I worry about the whole pool feature here, right guys? Because I realize that it can be overcomplicated with all this information coming out and all these different strategies going on. Again, do what makes sense for you personally, and make sure that you really think about your financial goals, your time horizons, and what's going to work for you personally. Again, there's no one size fits all. I don't have all the answers. I'm not a guru, right? And nobody else is either. I don't know what the prices are going to do. I don't know when PulseChain is going to launch. And anybody that tells you they do is probably lying to you or trying to scam you. So be careful out there, guys, and just have fun. Patience is really a virtue in all this. But if you have a longer term time horizon and you see the bigger picture, the long-term vision, I think we're all on board for a really long and really fun ride to see where PulseChain and HEX end up in the coming years. So thanks for watching, guys, and I'll see you on the next video.